myself a partner there who wore a Gestapo uniform. His name was Ludwig Cronenberg, and we were crawling in under the barbed wire into the ghetto, which took us a good night, the whole night to get there. And we were able to get out a few people out of the ghetto in Lodz and bring them to Warsaw. But after a very short time, one of our members proved to be a traitor. He was a Gestapo informant, and we were all arrested. We were all arrested, and Ludwig Cronenberg, my partner, was executed. And my paper somehow held up to the scrutiny, and I was sentenced to 9 months imprisonment for sympathizing with Jews as a German. They still didn't discover I was Jewish. When I came out, I discovered that my parents didn't want to go into the ghetto, so they left Lodz when the ghetto was established, and they went to the city called Tomaszów Mazowiecki, where my grandfather was the cantor of the city, where my two aunts were teachers. We had friends, we had relatives. This was our town. And they thought that they escaped the ghetto, but it didn't take very long before the ghetto in Tomaszów was also made a ghetto. In every city in Poland they made ghettos. And the small villages and towns around, surrounding the towns had to move in the Jewish population. And then the big ghettos, like ours was a little ghetto, we were just 15,000 people. But the big ghettos like Warsaw and Lodz, there, the Germans were emptying the ghetto by sending people to the east. They used to say that they're taking people to work in the east. So, this wasn't, nobody minded to go to work. The only thing they started worrying was that nobody came back from the east, that they didn't get letters from there. What's happening there? They needed to know where they're going. And by the time I was 19, I met a young man, and we fell in love, and we decided we were going to get married. In November of 1942, something happened. We were in my in-laws' house, and a shooting started around the ghetto. And when we heard the shooting, we knew that we had to be in our room, because whenever there was anything happening, you had to be in your place. Raids or anything. And we ran through the streets of this ghetto, and the bullets were falling, and people were lying on the street dead. And I couldn't move. Like you dream sometimes, you run and you cannot move. This is how he was practically pulling me. This was on a Friday night. Saturday morning, they decreed that the ghetto will be divided in half. As you heard, it was only 15,000 people. And the first part of the ghetto, let's see, the southern part of the ghetto, is to come to the marketplace, which was the selection area, and to go through a selection. And anybody who couldn't come, who was too sick, too feeble, too old, too young, was to be put on a chair in front of the building. Nothing alive was to be left in the building. Even some people maybe still had a cat or a dog, even those animals. They were Jewish dogs and Jewish cats. They started on Saturday with one part of the ghetto, rested on Sunday. On Monday, they took the second part of the ghetto. On Saturday, I lost my parents and my older brother. On Monday, I lost my in-laws, including my little Ruthie, who was my student in my school. And finally, those small camps became obsolete, and they put us on trains, and they sent us to Auschwitz. And on arrival at Auschwitz, we knew already about concentration camps. We didn't even doubt it anymore. But still, to arrive at Auschwitz and to see it was such a horror. I cannot even believe that it really existed. And we had to jump off. First of all, those creatures in striped uniforms came up on the train and made us jump off the train. And on the platforms, we were immediately separated, men separate, women separately. Anybody under 12 and over 40 straight to the gas chambers. We were marched off to the camp proper. In our case, we were taken to Birkenau. Now, Auschwitz was very, very big. Auschwitz I, Auschwitz this, and Birkenau was the place where they had the crematoria and the gas chambers. And when we were marching to Birkenau, and I saw the chimneys, and the spewed just flames and ashes were flying, and you could feel them on your fingers. Those were human ashes, and I said to myself, I have to survive. I'm strong. I need to survive. The world has to find out about it. This cannot be forgotten. And this was working on my adrenaline. This is why I did survive. I went through so much later, but I did not give in. Now, Auschwitz was also not only Jewish. There were Christian people in Auschwitz. The Jewish prisoners, we had a yellow triangle. Political prisoners had a red triangle. There were also German political prisoners, mind you. Criminals had black triangles. Antisocials, green triangles. Jehovah's Witnesses, purple triangles. Homosexuals, pink triangles. That's how we were marked. In January 1945, a group of men from Auschwitz arrived in our camp. They were the men at the Death March that the Germans took out of Auschwitz because the Russians were coming close. They didn't want to leave any witnesses. Still during when the Germans were losing the war, the priority was still killing of the Jews, not the war effort. Killing of the Jews was the priority. Trains were still taken to take people from all countries. We had people in Auschwitz from Greece, from Italy, from all over the world. They were still brought in where they needed trains for the German army. We were the priority. The next morning is roll call. Roll call, Jews on the left, non-Jews on the right. I had to stand roll call in the kitchen because that's where I worked. So I went on the left, and my Yugoslav girl was on the right, and she said to me, "Are you crazy? Come with me. They don't know that you are Jewish. Stay with me." And I said to her, "You know something, a couple of weeks ago I might have taken you up on it. I cannot anymore. I'm finished. I'm going with my friends. Whatever will be, will be." And this saved my life. I later found out, but I didn't realize that at the moment. And we were traveling for a couple of days, and the trains were bombed, and the SS was jumping off the train and pointing their machine guns toward the train. Should we try to disperse, they would shoot us. That's how we were traveling, and after a couple of days, we finally wound up in Denmark. The name of the city was Padborg, Denmark. When we got there, the two SS men, they were always escorting those trains, put their knapsack on, and they said to me, "Now you are going to be free. What's going to happen to us, God only knows." And off they went. And there were Danish people who came to the train to pick up their relatives. And those were ladies and gentlemen in civilian clothing with coats and gloves, and hugging them and kissing them and taking them home. And I sat on the floor and I looked at that, and this is when it first hit me. Why did you even bother? You have no place to go, there's nobody waiting for you. This is when it first hit me that I had nobody and nothing. Himmler made a deal with the Swedish Count Folke Bernadotte. They started with picking up Scandinavian prisoners from the camps, and then wound up, made a deal that some of the Jewish prisoners would be given passage to Sweden. Couldn't talk. I didn't want to speak to my children because I was afraid that my children will learn to hate the people who did it to me. I don't want my children to grow up to be hateful. I want my children to be normal children. It took a very long time till my children heard anything, and never directly. The only time my children ever heard parts of my story, they never heard the whole story, is when they hear me speak to others. First, when the deniers came and started speaking that the Holocaust never happened. Oh, this is when we decided that this has to be taken care of. How can they tell us? And also, you know, in spite of everything, I'm a real optimist. I hope that there are more good in people than there is bad. And that I think that if I reach some young people and teach them that of course we are different, but we learn from one another's differences. The difference is wonderful. We cannot judge somebody because prejudice is prejudging. We cannot judge somebody because they're different from us. We are not better, neither are they. We have to learn to respect one another. You want to be respected, you have to give respect back. And this is so very important for me. When I speak to young people and I see in their eyes that they got it, that they get what I'm here to do. Because somebody said to me, do you want them to hate the Germans? I said, this is not my goal. I don't hate them. I know that there were Germans who were decent. So I gave you a little...
This is a 5-minute warning. We're going to break at 7 so that we have some time to visit the Mani Nidal Learning Center and you have some time to move into the other room.
Do we have any questions?